Hi, good evening, and welcome back to Fridays Live with me, Raj Nayak. This is my fifth episode, and so fast, 1 month has just flown by. Thank you very much for all your love and affection. It means a lot to me to get this encouragement from you. My guest this evening is a purveyor of all cool things, beautiful. He is one of India's finest fashion photographers and is now also a very successful film producer. Please welcome my dear friend, Atul Kasbekar. Atul, thank you for doing this and coming and agreeing to do this live chat with me.
Thank you, Raj. Pleasure to be here. How are you doing? You look happy and cheerful, as always.
Yeah, I think I get inspired by you. You're one of those people. I want to ask you a question. Has Gautam Singhania ever offered you to model for Raymond's? Because you're good behind the camera, you're good in front of the camera, you got a very stable family life. You're the complete man, the way I see it.
I think Gautam thinks he is more complete than anyone else. So if he uses anyone other than models, it will be he himself. So knowing Singhi. So.
And because I just, little that I know about you, you went to Campion and then you were very good at sports even from childhood. You captained your school team, then you played basketball, you edited your school magazine. How did you then get into photography?
See, I was in engineering school and there were only 3 girls in a class of 60, Raj. And they were all much brighter than I could ever hope to be. So they were the Mensa IQ prototypes, and I figured that I may as well go someplace where my chances were a little better. So what better place than to pick up a camera?
Yeah, but those days, photography was something that parents wouldn't encourage, right? Because you want either engineer, doctor, IS officer, foreign service, but photography was something, or was it a cool thing at that? I don't know.
No, not at all. I was studying at the UDCT, which was one of the finest institute of chemical engineering, and I had gotten there, which was a big deal. And then from there to quit that and to go into something like photography. And at that time, I think everybody's impression was that this is something, again, with no disrespect intended, somebody did at weddings or, and like sort of, thoda andar, okay, everybody smile, sort of thing. So to explain that there's something called advertising photography was like an episode and a half. And actually, there were a few people who I'm deeply grateful for, like Gautam Rajadhyaksha, who actually took the time to meet my dad and explain to him that, there is this whole new world that's coming up. And with due credit to him, he sort of listened. I think it helped that Gautam was a GSB, and my dad is very partial that way, apna gaon wala is telling you that it's not such a bad thing. So.
And so where did you work with Gautam, or how was it? You interned with him or something like that?
I actually hung out a little bit with him, not really worked, but it was more of, I actually spent a lot of time with Prahlad Kakkar at Genesis. And there were a lot of people who spawned out of Genesis, who have been making a living in the visual arts for forever. So I was with Prahlad for a while, and then I actually quit UDCT after a year, and then was sending my applications abroad and hung out with them at that time. And then I was in the US for 4 years.
So you went to the US to study photography, or what was
Correct. So I was at the Brooks Institute for 3 years, and then I assisted a year in LA, and then I came back.
How have you seen it evolving? Because I don't know. Today, everybody is a photographer. Every camera phone, everybody is a photographer. And there are so many tools to edit and things like that. So what have you seen as the journey of photography? How has it evolved over the years?
So, I actually was very lucky to catch the early wave. You could count on your fingertips the names that were known nationwide at that time. There was Shantanu and Vilas Bende and, Ashok Salian and Dental Sequera. These are the few names. I don't know how many people, getting into the business know of these names anymore, in fact. And, for me, it was a market ready to boom. Advertising was set to, go exponentially up. So it was a really good time to actually be there. But, my favorite example now is now you can throw a stone and hit a photographer, really, pretty much. There's just, because you're constantly, you have a camera or a video camera in your pocket with which you answer the phone once in a while. But, the reality is that the access, especially with apps and stuff, like I've seen a lot of absolutely downright horrendous work which has been made to look good by somebody later on the computer. So it's just one of those things where on a given day, Raj Nayak can take an incredible photograph. I don't know if I could ever run a big TV conglomerate, unless there's a lot of effort I put in to get there. I'll also never change an artery, or argue a case in a Supreme Court, but doctor friends of ours and lawyer friends of ours on a given day can take a masterful photo. So, I think to some extent it's been, for lack of a better word, cheapened or just made easy.
So that's interesting. I mean, especially for you, I mean, what you see then is the career for photographers today. I mean, you were lucky, you were at the right time. I mean, I wouldn't say right time, but probably those days, like you said, there were a few handful people, and you're lucky to an extent that your parents allowed you to follow your heart, pursue your passion. Today, I mean, what do you see as, would you recommend people take photography as a career?
I would recommend they also focus on cinematography or videography, because I think that is something that will have a much wider scope of business than whether it is you're shooting for a digital, like a small digital thing for somebody's Instagram, or whether you're doing a very high-end commercial or a motion picture. And anything in between. There's going to be a phenomenal amount of work for people in video, is my personal opinion. So anyone who comes saying want to be a photographer, I'm like, listen, be really careful of your choices right now, because there's literally a zillion people who can take a still image or think they can take a still image. Hence the market is butchered just in terms of what the rates and so on and so forth are. Having said that, if you're an absolutely prodigal genius in whatever it is you're doing, no matter how saturated, there will be work for you, but then you have to honestly ask yourself, are you a prodigal genius?
Yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, this is something for all those people who are planning to pursue photography. Here's some, tips from the master himself. So Atul, tell me, I mean, about your parents a bit.
So my dad's the eldest of five. It's a simple Saraswat Brahmin family. I'm clearly the black sheep. To do something retarded like become a photographer when he's a master's in mathematics, and then after that there's an architect, a doctor, chemical engineer, and a chartered accountant.
Wow.
And and then the generation before that, my grandfather was a deputy controller of the RBI, and his brother was the chief secretary of Maharashtra State and the finance secretary, government of India. And their brother-in-law was HDM Sukrankar, who was municipal commissioner and chief secretary of Maharashtra State. So, and of course their first cousin was MS Kasbekar, who was the deputy general of police and the police commissioner of Mumbai, etc. So it's this very illustrious family of people who've been huge civil servants or highly qualified professionals. And you want to be a what? Okay, fine. So
that's interesting. I mean, and for a family like that, with everybody being in bureaucracy and, for them to allow you to pursue photography, I think a lot of credit goes to them as well. So how did you make your transition? I mean, I've seen that you years ago, you set up Bling, right?
Right.
As a celebrity management. I mean, was it a conscious move saying that, okay, things are changing, or it was just that, okay, let me also do this?
Actually, it was always at the back of my head because when I came back, I started looking for photography agents because everybody I assisted in the US had an agent, and they just shot their picture, and the agent went and scoped the work, got the money, took care of the paperwork, all of the above. So you could focus on your craft, and that's all you did. And I'm like, okay, so I want an agent, and there was no such thing. It didn't exist at that time. We're talking the years 91. And it was always in the back of my head that creative people should not be discussing their own business at all. It's much easier for an agent slash manager to say, do you know he's God's own shit, this guy, than for you to say, do you know that I am God's own shit, so it's that kind of thing. So I think it was at the back of my head, and then so which is something I got into then, because everybody needs representation, and a representative is always going to get you a better deal even after you pay out their commissions. So here, for example, when we started Matrix, we'd spoken to a couple of supermodels at that time who were at the top of their game, and obviously their phone was ringing anyway, and we asked them, and they were like, I don't know, I don't know why I need an agent. Even though you were friendly with them, they didn't join, and then I still remember client number 1 was, I think, Yana Gupta, and client number 2 was Katrina Kaif. And I'm pretty certain by year 3, they had both made more money in those 3 years than the supermodels of that time had done, as a lifetime of work until then, which would have been like 6-8 years, So it just goes to show.
So tell me, you said supermodels and this supermodel thing. Now there are no supermodels, right? I mean, this whole concept of supermodels has just vanished.
Yeah, I think collectively we've all managed to. Yeah, we managed to destroy that whole concept. It doesn't exist anymore, and it's entirely our loss. I don't know where and how it happened, but for example, even fashion magazines won't put other than Elle, will not put or very rarely put a model on the cover, because the logic is it doesn't sell. So even like a Vogue, will put like a model maybe once a year or something on the cover. So same thing with the GQ. When was the last time you've seen like a male model on GQ?
Models on the cover, I've seen.
Haji?
Vogue in the US put models on the cover.
Yeah, so it's not just that. I'm just saying across the board. I don't know how and when it just happened, but we managed to just kill the supermodel as an entity.
Everybody is singing, everybody is dancing, everybody is hosting. So I think it's interesting. And from there to movies, the transition. How did that happen?
So the writer of Nirja, this guy called Simon Quadras, knows a partner of mine well, and he brought an 8-pager to us saying that, if you like this, let's make a movie, or, so on and so forth. And I was in the US when the Pan American flight was hijacked in '86. And I remember distinctly, the amount of noise that was there. And what people don't realize is it is actually the worst hijacking in airline history. Okay, like
I remember. I remember.
I asked a bunch of people if they remembered about this incident, and everybody talked about IC-184, the Indian Airlines flight that got hijacked from and went to Kandahar from Nepal. Sure. So as I just realized that this is somebody who had won the Ashok Chakra. Not won, was awarded the Ashok Chakra, which is the highest award for gallantry in peacetime. And nobody remembers this. And there was a chowk in Ghatkopar at that time. Now flyovers come over it. I think Amitji had inaugurated that one. And I believe that now, because the flyovers come over it, that chowk doesn't exist per se. So it just seemed like, an important chapter of history had been forgotten. And so we said, okay, if we get the rights, then let's try and make it. And then we got, Ram Madhwani on board. I've always thought Ram is one of the best filmmakers ever. And he said no to God knows how many things in his career so far. So I was very grateful that he said yes. And then it just seemed like it was cosmically ordained. just things just kept falling into place. I don't know if we'll ever have an experience like that, to be honest. Just
I'm a fan of Ram too. In fact, he's done a short film called Bloodline, which everybody must watch. I don't know whether you see
yeah,
it.
it's the one on the
The line.
India Pakistan.
That's right. That's right. Interesting. So tell me,
What's it
your
called?
first experience on doing a movie. I mean, obviously investing in a movie, and how did it all come through? I mean, you just said, okay, let me just go with it. I mean, Ram, of course, you got him as a director, but your casting, how did you choose on the actors and things like that? Did you have
So,
Sonam in mind that way? Or
yeah, we were representing Sonam at that time, and we pitched it to her. She liked it. Anil said yes as well. So we had the actor and we had the director, and we had a really, really good script. So actually on paper, and once the dialogues were written by Sanyukta Chawla, literally in a narration, I started putting, TikTok Jackson tissue boxes in the room, and discreetly at 2-3 different places, because whoever heard it would start crying. And after a while, it was quite shameless. Like they just didn't give a damn who was looking. There were tears rolling down everyone's face, So I knew we were onto a good thing. I sounded out Rucha Pathak, and she was leaving her earlier place and she was joining Fox. And she said, "Listen, I'm going to Fox. I promise you, when I get there, it's the first phone call I'll make, so don't call anyone else." And she kept her word. And then we didn't need to go to another studio. And I'm like, okay, this is easy. I can make more films. turned out that's not quite the case. Yeah. So,
but I mean, you were also, to get the first break with Fox and for the first movie to be a super hit, to win the national award. So was there a lot of pressure then going to the second and the third? I mean, you picked some good movies actually. I mean, Tumhari Sulu, you've done some, and you've not gone to do very big budget movies, but you've chosen good storylines and things like that.
So, to be fair and to give us credit, we were talking about the word content before it became the word to be talked about. And in my head, a commercial film is a film that does well commercially. Otherwise that tag gets thrown in, which equals, or at least equaled at some time. You need X number of item songs. You need, nonsense.
Yeah.
Anji, sorry?
How much profit you make, not how many 100 crores you've written, right?
Yeah, and when they said, I said this is a commercial film. So I'm like, what does that mean? And it would mean something like, oh, you need an item number, you need, a promotional song and things that I couldn't get my head around. So, my logic is, if the movie does well commercially, it's a commercial film. It's commercially viable. So we've always kept our budgets tight. We've spent where we've needed to, and have not really, done something extravagant for the sake of it, just to show off somewhere. And then, we partnered with Tanuj Garg, who is the former CEO of Balaji, and he's been at the helm in some way or the other, from distribution to production to marketing of over 35-36 films at that time. So Tanuj knows more about the movie business than I would sort of. He's probably forgotten more than I would learn, as the phrase goes. And so each time we have to talk to numbers people and lawyers, we send Tanuj, and then each time we have to talk to the creative side of the fence, then I'll go. So works well.
Interesting. So what's your next project?
We were actually set to start the remake of Run Lola Run, which is a script that's very dear to me, with Taapsee, on the 17th of April. And then a certain virus has come and just wiped out everything in the picture. So now we have to wait until things come back to normal and shoot. So the director on that is Akash Bhatia, who is also from advertising. And he's done Inside Edge 2. And Taapsee and Tahir Raj Basina in the lead, and it's one of those great films of all time. You ask anybody, give me your 50 best.
I have seen it.
Yeah, and so we've Indianized it, so to speak, and adapted it for modern times, and so I'm very excited about it. So hopefully we can get it back on track soon enough. But I can't imagine that anyone will be logically shooting until after Diwali, in my opinion.
No, I feel the same. I mean, I've said it and I feel the same. Since we are
Sorry for all your listeners. This is my munchy time, and I'm trying to be healthy and eat something. So please excuse me.
are you getting
I managed to in lockdown lose like almost 8 kilos of fat.
are you getting
So
paid for the promotion?
no, but if they want to send me many free boxes, guys, please go ahead. Raj has my address.
They
I'll
can
send him half.
because you're on my show. So
So
since we are speaking about this pandemic, and you said that the theaters, I mean, you don't see anybody really shooting before 1st of October at least, and I hope it's earlier. You've been doing some good work. I mean, you started this string, right? Where I see a lot of celebrities coming and collecting all kinds of stuff, and I see boxes going to different hospitals and things like that. So can you tell me a bit about it?
so I just think this is a time when, you know, it's honestly time. I don't want to sound preachy or anything, but I think everybody needs to do a little something, whatever it is. Okay, if it means there are some old people in your building and you feel the need, I mean, you go and check up on them and see if they need to do some shopping, and you go and do it for them, that's fine. If it's a kind word for the security guy, you know, and you send them some nice food from home, you know, that's fine. If you can do a whole lot more, then that's fine. But I really think that you know, this is a time for people to just generally be helpful and decent and whatever it is. So I read a lot, Raj. I read pretty much anything that passes my desk or my iPad. And I realized that one of the key things early in this is that, you know, we need to protect our frontline, which is essentially the medical corps. And how a unit in a hospital works is there's a senior doctor, then there'll be two junior doctors, there'll be nurses, ward boys, interns, etc. So it's a group of between 8 to 12, 14. And if any one of these people gets tested positive, which has happened routinely, then the entire unit is quarantined for anywhere from 8 to 14 days. Can you imagine the catastrophe that happens? You know, which is why a lot of doctor friends of mine have said, listen, whatever you do, don't fall sick. Like, don't turn an ankle, don't have an accident, don't, you know, because there aren't enough people to attend to you right now, you know. Yeah. So you know, so I figured the first thing we need to do is to just protect our medical corps. And with all due respect, I don't think this happened early enough at state and all center level. You know, I don't think we had enough PPE kits on the ground to make sure that our medical staff are being protected. So my simple philosophy in life is to lead, follow, or get out of the way. And there's a guy called Manish Mundra of Drishyam Films, you know, who's been sitting in Nigeria and who by now I estimate has spent well over $1 million, you know, 7 odd crores of his own money, just literally on PPE kits, on beds, on food, on whatever it is. He's gone crazy, you know, helping. Even if you don't go to that extent, I said, you know, let's just do something useful. Haji?
Yeah, whatever you can within your limits, and you know.
Yeah, you know, so these friends of mine own Tring, you know, and it's a shout out platform. And my thing with charity is that, you know, instead of giving it to one, I would never give it to one fund of some kind, because, and that's just me, maybe they're doing great work, but I want to know that if I gave a lakh of rupees, what happened with that lakh specifically, you know. And
I fully agree with you. Same philosophy.
yeah, you know,
Same philosophy.
so if it went into a nebulous hole and maybe it got used well, perhaps, and I'm not casting any aspersions, but I'd much rather know exactly. I think there are a lot of people like me who'd like to know exactly what happened with the money they worked very hard to give away in this case. So that is one. So here the accountability is literally down to the penny, from which manufacturer to which hospital. You know, we've gone to the extent of getting videos from the hospital saying Haji received, you know, so on. And the other is a gratification, which is where Trin comes in. And so depending on whose stars bucket you put in, you get either a mention on their social media, or it could even be a video phone call. It could be a shout out that is a video message sent to you saying, listen, thank you for doing this. So everybody gets a kick out of the fact that, you know, hey, so-and-so XYZ star spoke to me. And now we have some 14 stars on board. So it's going really well. We've sent out over 15,000 PP kits so far. I just spoke to the commissioner of police earlier today. I have a desperate need of gloves now, you know, for the cops. So tomorrow we're placing a large order for gloves to go to Mumbai police, because a lot of police, as you know, have been striking positive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's just a little something, whatever one can do. I'm really grateful to all the people who've, just taken my word for it and come on board, Vidya, Farhan, Sonakshi.
I happened to chance come across this by chance on your Instagram, because you've been very quiet about it. You've been doing a lot of stuff, but you've been quiet. And also on Twitter, one of the things I noticed is you're vocal about issues and you voice your opinion. And I think that's a good thing. A lot of people don't, but you do, and that's a great quality. So let's, I think we've discussed this. Let's, switching gears, as I would say. Okay, let's go to a little bit more fun stuff. You got fraternal twins, right?
Yes, boy and a girl. Yes.
Boy and girl. Naomi and
Arnav.
Arnav. Okay. So what do they do?
So my daughter has graduated from Georgetown.
Huh?
She is currently working with Credit Suisse and is stuck in Manhattan.
Okay.
Instead of doing 16-hour days at office,
she's in New York right now?
Yes, she's in Manhattan.
Okay.
And instead of doing 16-hour days at the office, she's now doing 12-hour days at home for the last 3 months. So, so now she's done in July, and then has time to wrap up and come back. And my son is at the New York Film Academy in LA. So he's a bit like me in the sense that he's pottered around at one thing and then two things. And then, so I said, listen, I'm one of those fathers who, I spent a year in engineering, then a year faffing around in Bombay before I went to the US. So I'm like, take a gap year. And I can't recommend it enough to people that after your 12th, you don't necessarily have to jump into something. You can take a year off. It's fine. So he took a year off. He went to Ladakh. He did, wandered around, did some things. And then said, I think I want to direct. So I said, okay, I just want you to know my last name is not Johar or Chopra. So if you think you're joining the family business, then not your honor.
I can relate to this. You met my daughter Atiya. Okay, yeah. Same thing. She took a gap year and she went to New York to do Lee Strasberg to do her acting course, and she's come back. And I told her the same thing. My surname is Nayak. So I can tell you, there's a movie made called Nayak.
Oh.
Yeah, and your daughter plays tennis as well, I'm told.
Both of them play tennis. They're quite good. Actually, both of them are very athletic. And
so does that come from the father?
Father, this is the few things a father can take full credit for. And I think my wife Vandana gets pressured because there are 3 people working out like maniacs. She also feels that, yaar, main bhi kuch karoon. I think if she had a way, her whole family, I don't think has done a push-up for a very long time. So nobody, so I think she's so everything else you can take credit for. This bit with the kids, I can take credit for, please.
But you're a fitness freak. I see some of the exercises you do and like, wow. And you're growing younger by the day.
It's only consistency. I keep telling people that, people who work out will go nuts if they have one, like, overeat on a given day. And I'm like, one bad meal is not going to ruin your body. And on the other hand, I'll tell the other people that one great workout is not going to make your body either. It's literally just being at it 6 days a week, month after month, year after year, and then one day you die. But the point is you don't stop. It's relentless. And then you just get better and better and better. So, and so I actually, stupid as it might sound, discovered yoga about 2 odd years ago. And I've been practicing it since. And, I had this perennial back pain, on the lower left side for literally since photography school. It's not there anymore. It has just simply disappeared. And every once in a while, I'll look around here, where's that pain? It's almost like you lost a relative or something. Kahan hai tu? And it's not there. So I can't recommend it enough. I don't think yoga was cool when I was growing up and, working out. Our idea of working out was going to the gym and asking retarded questions like, so how much do you bench press? And how big are your biceps? That kind of nonsense conversation would happen. But I think I think like for me, fitness is a totally different thing right now. I mean, this lockdown, I've lost some between 7 and 8 kilos.
Yeah.
So,
Atul, I keep watching all the stunts that you flaunt on your and I'm like, wow, how does he do it? So it's just 2 years, is it? That's interesting. I mean, in 2 years, you managed to.
well, the yoga bit is 2 years. I mean, I've always been training. I play sports. I play volleyball. Now, whatever, something or the other, one's always doing. But I train 6 days a week, whatever it is. Earlier, I used to kickbox. Every once in a while, there'll be something interesting. But you and I can go to a bar one day and then you pick a fight with somebody, then I'll come and rescue you with that kind of thing. We can do some stuff.
Hopefully that won't happen. I see you play volleyball on weekends. Where do you play?
In our building, we've got a very competitive, vicious, brutal league. So, good stuff.
And you're a fan of Arsenal and LA Lakers?
LA Lakers, because I played basketball, then I spent 4 years in LA, so it was inevitable. And that time, there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson and, James Worthy in the LA team, which kept winning. So it was a magical time to be there. No pun intended. I have a picture with Magic Johnson, by the way.
Wow.
I have a picture of Magic Johnson because I was allowed into their practice because I sent begging little notes to them because they should come to Santa Barbara to train at a place called Westmont College. So, and I was waiting on tables at this fancy Indian restaurant called Paul Bhalla's Cuisine of India. He was actually Jitinder Pal Bhalla, who became Paul Bhalla's. So I called up the hotel they were staying. I still remember it was the Red Lion, and I spoke to the big man coach, a guy called Bill Burtka. So I said, listen, you don't know me, but can I send you some food or something, whatever, I want to come and watch a practice. So he said, are you serious? I said, yes, sir, please, I'm from India. And that India card worked very well. So he said, okay. He said, no, you don't need to get me any food or anything, but sure, I'll leave your name at the door. How do you spell that again? Kasbekar, so anyway. So me and my Filipino roommate at that time went there together, and there was just us and there was a CBS crew, and we saw an entire Los Angeles Lakers practice with Kareem and Magic and Jesus, the works. I don't know how many people can say that, but true story. So.
Yeah, and I saw a very nice picture of Kobe Bryant and his daughter that you put on your Instagram.
Yeah, that's one of the great tragedies of, I think he'll end up being the James Dean of sport, just too young. You wonder what could have been types.
So what was your reaction when you heard the news early morning?
Oh, I cried. And Kobe was, Kobe, some people, so sport means a lot to me. I mean, just generally, and I think some people transcend loyalties of nations, transcend club loyalties, and they're above and beyond. So they're beyond reproach in terms of, so you might be a Boston fan, or you might be a Detroit Pistons fan or a Bulls fan, but you cannot but have great respect for Kobe Bryant, And similarly with, let's say, since we're talking basketball, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, of course, and so on. So, and when it comes to cricket, let's say if you go to Sachin's account ever on Instagram, there's not one bad word. Yeah. It's nobody runs him down. So whichever country you go to, they hold him in high regard. Yeah, they've elevated beyond, any kind of it's the I use the word legend very, very rarely, and that's where they go. So I think it's wonderful when you can. I think sport teaches you so much. Just teaches you so much about life and so on. So when you lose someone like that, it's just really
the circumstances in which you lost him. I mean, that is so tragic.
Yeah, awful. And do you know why he had that chopper? Because he wanted to spend more time with his girls.
Yeah.
So he wanted to be able to go to school to drop them and to pick them up. But where he lived was very far. From the Staples Center and their practice arenas. So it would take him in LA, in legendary LA traffic, an hour and a half or whatever to get there. So he spends a fortune on a chopper just so he could have a better family life. And then he was coaching his daughter's team, right? So the other parents and the other players, they say, why don't you come here? We'll go buy my chopper. So basically, I mean, can you believe the ludicrous irony of it all?
I'm talking to you now. It's sad, very
sad. Horrible.
You speak about father-daughters. You started something on I remember that was probably thrice I've paid up for it, just for your information, but I never got a chance to come and do it, is Nanikali. How did that come up?
I've been actually associated with Nanikali for many years. Anand Mahendra is a very old friend, and I think they do wonderful work in the area of girl-child education. And my simple belief is that, listen, the female gender is in every which way, other than, let's say, just plain manual labor, superior to men. Okay, and we should be very grateful that they are on this planet, because it makes it a much nicer place. And they're definitely smarter than us. They are more resilient than us. They're more focused than us, and so on. So I could never understand why anyone would think twice about having a daughter. I mean, are you kidding me? What's wrong with you? So so when we realize we're having twins, I'm like, please tell me it's not two boys. so,
We had a daughter first, and second time we were like, we hope it's another daughter. Hope it's.
Yeah. So anyway, so this actually started when the Nirbhaya incident had happened, and I honestly had a lot of sleepless nights just over it. So Raj, my whole thing is, whatever you do, again, just in terms of being quantifiable. Okay, it's very important for me that whatever I do is quantifiable, and you can put a specific number to it. It may be a small number, but it's a number. It's not a nebulous thing of, oh, we did some good. What? We don't know, So here what happens is with Nanikali, when you contribute, they tell you the girl who's gone to school thanks to you. You can connect with her on email if you wish. You can check how they've done in school, get a report card, whatever it is you want. You can communicate. So there's a human being that that your money has gone towards. It's not just, somebody went to school. So I've always been impressed by the way they do that. And here again, I thought, in terms of a gratification, let's celebrate a father-daughter relationship, because it's really, really special. And again, I'm very grateful to all my colleagues it was one phone call, and all of them just, agreed to do it. So we've now done 6 editions of Proud Fathers for Daughters. And I think approximately, it's either 5,000 or 6,000 girls have gone to school, thanks to that.
So
your voice is cracking. Sorry, what?
A fear I always have when I'm doing live, And a lot of people tell me, why are you doing live? Why don't you do recorded? Recorded, you can get it crisp, you can get it nice and make it look slick. But I think there is thrill in going live, that adrenaline rush. It's like playing a game. It's like sports, right? So last evening, I saw your tweet on the Premier League. You seem to be quite excited.
Yes, because my beloved Arsenal are not doing very well. And if the league had ended where it did, wouldn't have been a particularly good idea. But I think it's a really good team, and it's got a great new coach. And I think these last 9-10 games that are there are going to make a difference. And I think we'll easily finish top 6, if not top 4. So let's see.
Yeah, they will be playing, right? I mean, they with Manchester.
Man City is the first game. So that, and then there'll be many more games.
So what's your view on this playing the Premier League? I mean, playing without fans. I mean, how do you see that? I watched
a couple of the German league has started 2 weeks back. So I watched a couple of games. The atmosphere is terrible. I mean, there's no atmosphere.
Yeah.
To be fair.
I think that's part of the whole experience.
Yeah. So just so you know, every year, pretty much, for, at least let's say 16, 17 years of the last 20, I have made some excuse or the other to fly to London, and I'll work it around watching an Arsenal game at either Highbury then or the Emirates Stadium now.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've sort of wangled that and, sorted myself out to watch this.
Yeah, we should plan one trip together.
Done.
Yeah, I love football. I won't take too much of your time. I think we've discussed quite a bit. Just, I cannot let you go without asking you about your experience with Kingfisher calendar, because that's something that everybody waits for every year. And I think you won the first You're the first Indian to win an award in F&B for creativity in London in 2005. So tell me about your experience with Kingfisher calendar. How did it come about?
It was an idea I had, which was based on a combination of Pirelli and Sports Illustrated. So Pirelli you cannot acquire; it comes to you from the desk of the chairman of Pirelli, as you know. And Sports Illustrated is just swimsuit, but Pirelli could be anything. It's just women. So I said, let's do a swimsuit calendar that you cannot acquire. It's only sent from the desk of the chairman. So I knew, Vijay only like socially, and I called him up and said, look, I have something to run by you. And he was in Goa. He said, okay, come to Goa. So I went there and I had this whole 45-minute pitch that I was going to give. And in the first 5 minutes, I think he got it. He said, yeah, done. Go ahead, do it. And that was that. So actually the first edition had Katrina Kaif in it, by the way, Yeah. And it was, so I'm just thinking, we just shot the 18th edition of this, which is probably the longest single association between any brand and a photographer. I'm pretty certain that there hasn't been a longer continuous association like ever. Maybe, I don't even know internationally, in India for sure not. And I'm just thinking that, see, to shoot the 18th edition, you started 1 year before, right? So that's 19. So somebody who was born then, when that first discussion happened, is technically 1920 now. We could possibly shoot with her for next year. That is bizarre when you think of it. Yeah. So, it's a great assignment because, I don't have to, if you like it, you can compliment me and thank you very much. If you don't like it, you can whack me and it's my fault as well. So there's no subcommittee of people because, as you know, famously, a camel is a horse made by a committee. So when there's 8 people who want to give advice, then that's when it gets screwed up. It might get screwed up anyway, but then at least you're responsible.
Yeah.
Either way. So here I was very clear that, listen, the day you bring an agency into the picture, bye-bye, I'm gone, So, and they appreciate this. Nothing against agencies, but it just gets into, as long as there's one person I'm reporting to, I'm good,
So tell me, who is the model, who was I wouldn't say the best model, I would say, who is the one you enjoyed working with the most? Or which is the location you enjoyed the most? Or both?
So locations, actually 3-4 places are really, I think, like to me, South Africa, possibly even from a production point of view and the range that you get is actually an unbelievable location. Also, the weather is fantastic. So Cape Town specifically would be one of my most favorite places, especially because it's got all the paraphernalia. You need extra lenses, you need, any kind of assistance, grip equipment, whatever it is, all available. Phenomenal locations, extremely well organized. But we shot in Mykonos. I can't even tell you what the light is like, Raj. It's just shocking. Just it's unbelievable. And the locals apparently live forever. They keep insisting that the ions in the air, are extremely conducive to long life and good health. And they all live like 85 is a no-brainer for all of them. There are routinely many people over 100 and all that living there in that whole Greek kind of thingy. So on the second day that we shot a straight, like literally 16 hours. No one was tired. It's unbelievable. And it's cracking sun. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's just incredible. I think Mykonos should be on everybody's list of places of must visit. When it comes to models, this is the kind of question that, gets you into trouble. So maybe I should take the 5th on that one. But what I will say is that if every shoot could happen with Malaika Arora, it would be a very good place for photographers.
Interesting.
Period. Yeah, and her and Lisa Hayden, I think, are my 2 all-time favorite people to shoot with. Like, Lisa's an absolute goddess. She's just delivered a second baby, and she's been water skiing, single ski somewhere in Hong Kong.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And she still looks the same after so many years.
Yeah, she looks the same. She's a genetic masterpiece, that one, complete.
And so what does beautiful mean to you? How do you define beautiful?
Who was that Hollywood actress who said, what do you mean by uh, beauty is only skin deep? He's saying, what are you looking for? An adorable pancreas. You know? So instead of going deeply philosophical into this, beautiful is beautiful, man. You know, it's just, you know, at like for what I do at my work, it's really skin deep. Okay, you know, but what I will say is that some people are beautiful and have an X factor, and that's a very difficult to define kind of thing. I don't know exactly how to say ki, okay, but if you put me in a room with 10 people, I'll point out the one with the X factor without too much of a conversation. See 5, 6 photos, and I'll say that's the one, you know. And I've been actually, to be fair, unerringly right on this, even if I say so myself, for years. So, which is a fairly well-known thing in the industry. People will ask in terms of, you know, whatever. So, for example, let's say Marico, I'd called up the marketing head over there and said, listen, there's this girl called Deepika Padukone. I think you should just sign her on for, you know, for Parachute, okay, and just trust me. And there's no other reason, okay. So he said, okay, done. So they did a 2-year deal, and you know, same thing with Tissot, for example. Let's sign her on then. You know, when there wasn't enough basis for them to take the punt, other than we trust your judgment.
Yeah.
You know, which is which is a good space to be in terms of who has the X factor. Otherwise, there are enough people who are beautiful. You know, and in beautiful, who's got that edge?
Before I let you go, I just want to apologize to all our viewers for this technical glitches that we had. I mean, not in our control. But thank you very much for watching this episode. And if you like what you see, please like, share on your social media. Also follow me on YouTube at Raj Cheerful, Cheerful with a double L. Atul, I'm going to let you go another 1 minute. Before that, this is a question I ask all my guests. How do you define happiness, and what does happiness mean to you? Tell me 3 things that make you happy.
I think I now think of, you know, if I think of a movie, okay, and you, even a movie that's memorable, let's say a Shawshank Redemption or whatever it is, you know, any classic you like, you don't remember the whole film. You remember moments from the film, right? You don't remember every single scene.
Yeah.
Correct? So I now think of my life like a motion picture. And I want to have as many memorable moments in the motion picture of my life. And that's actually important only to me, you know. And you know, and if I look back, I want to remember lots and lots of fabulous moments, which, you know, makes my movie memorable for me, you know. And ever since I started thinking of it like this, I can't tell you how happy I am. You know, it's just a switch in my head that one day turned, and that was that.
Very nice. On that note, Atul, thank you so much for spending time. And it was fun. I don't know how 1 hour passed away, but that's but great. I mean, thank you so much. You're always so full of life, full of beans. You know, it rubs off on others, and I feel even better now after speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.